Charles, thanks so much for joining us.
Great. This is really a happy day for us. We just announced record half-year earnings.
Yeah. Talk us through the IPO pipeline, though, because it's been strong. You had Alibaba last year, you had NetEase, JD, and now you're preparing for the likes of Ant Financial to come to Hong Kong as well.
That part of our life just continues. You have one big deal, another done. Just keep on going that and keep on trying.
Do you get a sense that this is more than just a 2019, 2020 story, that this is going to go on, this deal pipeline for many years to come?
Well, there pipeline of companies coming from China, from the world, all over the place for the years to come. But obviously, in terms of large companies that are already listed in the United States, for example, to the extent they wanted to either come back or have another listing, then obviously that's a limited number. But still, even there, we're talking about hundreds of companies with market cap over hundreds of billions of dollars. So still a lot of great opportunities for particularly those early very successful companies, unicorns that are listed in the U.S. But here the record earning is much more about trading, about active, strong, enthusiastic participation by the market. Connect was particularly strong on both southbound and northbound, 46% up, big, really a big deal. And so I can't be happier and grateful because given what's going on around it, you can't ask for more.
Yeah, given what's going on, you've been talking about obviously the U.S. and China trade tensions. We've seen multiple fronts now. Just overnight, we heard the U.S. warning universities to divest Chinese stocks that are listed in the U.S. You have the threat of these companies being delisted in stock exchanges in New York. And then you have Hong Kong's special trading status has been withdrawn. How are you viewing this financial market rivalry now?
We are clearly witnessing and experiencing things that we have never, ever done before, we have never, ever seen before. So everybody's trying to make sense out of it. And I don't really think any pontification about exactly what the impact is going to be and how it's going to go. Everybody's going to have their own opinions. But in the end, I'm guided by fundamentally the wisdom of the market. I look at the market. Market is the place. The market is always the smartest. It's the place that can really digest, informed, and ultimately make a decision. Look at the market. Market cannot be better.
How do you secure your position, though, for Hong Kong Exchange and welcome these IPOs that have been listed in the U.S. coming back home, while also safeguarding yourself, though, from attacks from the U.S.?
Well, anybody running a market, you just make sure that anybody who wants to participate in the market, you take the barriers down, you make sure you're the most efficiently run market, you allow everybody to intersect. In the end, market always have to deal with political situations, political upheavals, and political tension. This is not the time that we are very short of that, and but that also create opportunities and volatilities, and people actually wanted to trade because in the end, everybody want us to succeed. Because if the market succeeds, everybody else benefit, everybody else is going to win, and but sometimes you just have to keep your eyes open, and sometimes the storms comes, and to the extent you are able to make any changes to steer away from it, you try. But sometimes there are storms you can't. You just have to brace it.
President Trump said this week, Hong Kong will not be a successful exchange anymore. Hong Kong, and I quote, can never succeed under Chinese control, and its markets will, I quote, go to hell. What do you say to comments like that?
I don't really know, is that really what he said? But, who knows?
Yeah, it is.
And misconstrued. But, I think everybody is going to benefit if we do well. I don't know why anybody would wish us not to do well. When my friend Andina is doing well in NASDAQ, I call her and congratulate her. And when my friend Jeff is doing well in IZ, I call him and congratulate him. And they all both wish me well. And because when we win, when the market wins, everybody wins. We are a global market. Mm-hmm. U.S. funds managers are here. U.S. investors are here. U.S. companies are here. And I don't know why anybody would wish us to fail.
Obviously, locally, we're dealing with a lot of political turmoil as well with this national security legislation that has come into effect for 2 months now. Mm-hmm. You've set your views about how long-term it's not going to be negative for Hong Kong as a financial hub. I'm just wondering, what if there is a conflict between this law and your listing rules? How and can Hong Kong Exchange hold the line and preserve the credibility of the financial system here?
Well, we deal with conflict all the time. We deal with conflict between our rules and Chinese rules. We deal with our rules with the SFC rules. We deal with the differences and conflict between our rules and the US rules. And this is just a fact of life. We deal with it. And in the end, you have national law, and you have local law, and you have your own regulatory rules, and you have our listing rules. Our listing rules, among all the laws and regulations, are in that order. But in the end, most of our market-driven rules do not really get into conflict with big national laws. Generally speaking, we are a very narrowly focused market that deal with market behavior, with conduct, with how to run an efficient and fair and open market. And those rules are rarely in conflict with any of the, the big political considerations that people typically somehow imagine a conflict of.
I mentioned about the national security law. In terms of the impact on financial markets, what do you see as the biggest impact domestically and internationally?
Well, I think everybody has a national security law. Everybody talking about national security law, even all the discussions about TikTok, WeChat, and that. So many things are now being under the overall umbrella of national security law. I don't really think that the national security law here is in any way fundamentally different from when the U.S. government is talking about the national security law when it comes to its capital market, when it's come to all these big technology companies. So it's a fact of life. It's something that we all need to deal with. And when you operate in a market, you operate within the constraints and the structures of that jurisdiction, whichever one of the big ones will have a very significant national security law, because the world is now developing to this stage where that's just a fact of life.
I want to talk a little bit more about the business, obviously, with your plans for MSCI, China A shares, those futures contracts. That's been pending approval for more than a year now. Why the holdup? Why do you think Beijing has been reluctant to approve this?
I think there is a lot of desire. There's a lot of willingness to really develop offshore hedging tools, for international investors going to the north. But they also wanted to make sure that that effort and the domestic market are properly aligned and coordinated. I personally think it's ultimately will get resolved, but sometimes you also wanted to make sure that the instrument that you're able to do, that you're able to launch, is going to be reflective of what you really wanted to do, is going to be representative of the market. So we continue to discuss, because not only is it whether, but it's also what are the kind of products we are able to come up with that is the best useful and the effective tools for northbound investors to hedge that risk.
Of course, a lot of questions about what's your next step after you leave Hong Kong Exchange next year. There's been a lot of questions thrown at you. I'm just wondering, would you be interested in politics, say maybe even run for chief executive?
Well, right now, my term is not ending until next October, or earlier if we have a new successor that is being recruited and to be able to take over. So until then, I'm still running the exchange. I'm still 100% responsible and active in that job.
You've talked about, though, if the stock hit more than $300, you would start coming up with a plan. Is it more towards politics or business? What do you think?
Well, I take guidance from the mighty forces out there.